Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Brief. Today we're here and so happy to have Laurie Ehrbar with us. Laurie, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Laurie is the Chief Marketing Officer of Clary Sales Loft, and we're going to dig into that because that's actually two companies that have now become one. Laurie, to get us started, why don't you tell us about what led up to what you're doing these days?
Well, when I started out, I definitely did not think I'd be a CMO. I started out in college where I candidly did not spend all my time in the library. I spent a lot of my time actually building my resume, but in a completely different path. I worked for a United States senator. I was a research assistant for a professor who was also an advisor to the United Nations. So I dealt with that a great deal. I worked in media and politics in the UK as part of college. And I was a work study for the law school. So this was I thought I'm going to wind up being a press secretary or something. And I will tell you this, the one benefit of spending all this time building the resume was to learn what I didn't want to do, which there's an advantage there, a huge advantage. And so I think I was blessed that although I'd spent a lot of time doing that, it was still a good resume that resonated. Ultimately, that resume landed me on Wall Street, where I wound up, a resume like that will land you on Wall Street, whether you want to be there or not, probably.
Right.
And so I started working for Waterhouse Securities, and it was around the time when they were about to IPO and they merged with TD Bank. So then someone from that experience poached me to go to Salmon Smith Barney and do it again, right? So now I'd started to build a brand. Like, here's Laurie by the age of 27. She's somebody who can take these two massive companies and merge them in IPO. So by the age of 27, I'd already had a lot of really early success. And then I not traded it in, but changed it a bit, like changed the story, had kids, had 3 kids. And I'd had the brand so I could ride it and consulted on my own. So I had all these big relationships on Wall Street. Wall Street people always build their own companies. So here I was, I had that, Wall Street pedigree, but all these people I knew were throwing money at tech companies and they were like, hey, Laurie knows how to fix these things. Laurie can do these things. And, I'm driving around, worried about chicken nuggets and carpool, but I can still balance those worlds, which ultimately landed me at ServiceNow, where I worked and built out verticals, and then 3 times a CMO, right? So CMO at Bizaji, CMO at Smarsh, and now CMO at Clary Sales Loft. So that's how I wound up where I am.
So the irony I find in what you just shared is that working in the realm of politics and start like the IPO, those major, amazing how that actually arms you to be good at being a parent too, right? Because you have to juggle so many things and see the truth of what they're saying or behaving or doing. That's fascinating. So when you were doing the consulting, I'm curious, were you getting calls still from very large organizations typically, or smaller, trying to become part of a larger organization and in either IPO or M&A type calls?
In the beginning, it was the large companies. So it was the people I knew, right? So that's who you pull from. Like, who wants to keep selling themselves all the time, right? It's hard.
Right.
And so in the beginning, it was big firms that knew me, and it was like, hey, here's something bespoke. Like, how are we going to articulate this to the board that we want to do X, Y, Z, right? Like,
Yeah.
right? You going through so much M&A and an IPO, your brain just starts to naturally. It's like a muscle memory thing.
Yep.
But then it was smaller companies, and mostly it was smaller companies. It was, I'm going to be totally honest, it was smaller companies because people I knew were starting small companies that they aspirationally wanted to, go through an M&A or go through an IPO. And so they would throw me these kind of, what I always say, become sort of like the business card executive, where kind of I'm a business card, but I didn't really work for them. I worked for myself.
Yep.
But I was so deeply embedded in some of these companies. But it was fun. It was honestly cool. And what you see is the same patterns over and over and over again. It was like everyone has the same problems. Everybody wants to do aspirationally the same thing.
Yeah, no, for sure. Uh, Even though success looks different, you know, the way that people evaluate it or consider it and through relationships try to grow, is very similar for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Speaking of relationships, is that part of what helped you get to where you are now? I mean, in the current, organization?
No, I really didn't know anybody here. Um, right. I mean, I'm sure I was back channeled a lot. So, right.
People snooped you, right?
Yeah, I'm sure. I can guarantee it. But no, there was nobody who pulled us in. The entire C-suite here did not know each other before.
Wow.
Everyone is net new. Everyone, is we were all picked for different reasons of different superpowers that we have, I guess.
So talk to us a little bit about how that came together, and particularly for you, and what's changed since you've been in the seat?
So for me, I came in
Yeah.
for the acquisition.
Yep.
And so when they asked me to come in, going through M&A, I have the resume that's, Laurie knows how to do this. It's muscle memory. She can merge these two organizations neatly, understands what needs to be done, the people, the process, the tech, and candidly do it with empathy, right?
Yeah.
Which I don't always think is personally I've seen done badly in the
Yeah.
past. And so that's what I was called in to do. Take them through the M&A, and that was in I think I started interviewing in like June, July, and then started in August, during that process. And then everybody else started following after. I think by December everything started to take shape, new CEO, knew everybody, started, filing in.
Gotcha. Yeah, in the merger world, there's the saying, there's no such thing as a merger of equals, right? There's a diner dinner dynamic
Right.
that always exists. And what you just talked about was how you minimize that reality, because there's some of it, somebody has to lead, right? And there has to
Mhm.
be some discretion around role and separation of role. But tell us a little bit about how you do lead with empathy and how you've helped the organization take the good forward from both and leave the bad behind where, it might exist.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard because, like I would say to everybody on every phone call we had, is I'm going to meet you where you are. And every single person in the organization is somewhere different. Some people go through these experiences and they're like, yes, I'm waiting for this, right? They're like, game
Yeah,
on, right? And then you have people who are just a deer in headlights. They're scared, they're nervous. It's really hard to meet people where they are, but you have to. Each person is different, and I think
yeah,
where it falls apart is when you treat all of it as a one to many, and you have these very scripted conversations. My team will say this all the time. I am unusually transparent, and I try to never speak directly from the script, even though that's part of my job is scripting,
yeah, yeah,
right? Because you lose the human element. If I'm not on a phone call with somebody, and, insert name of person, and I'm not like reading the room, that they're feeling this all very differently, right?
yeah,
So I think that's a big part of it, and trying to bring everybody along with this, the end state vision. Because if we did everything incrementally, I
yeah,
was going to be in these constant conversations of like, but we did this here, and we should just add this one little thing or this one tiny thing, and you're just going to live in this world where nothing really gets done, and we just, go with team jerseys and what team are you on. And but if we talk about this vision of what the combined organization looks like, everyone can rally around that and
yeah.
get excited. So that was a big part of it.
Yeah, we've done a fair amount of work with private equity firms in post-acquisition, support, and often the brief from them is, uh, "We don't understand what these marketing people are telling us. Can you translate or get them to put it in PE firm,
Right.
language?" And
Yeah.
which obviously is a thing. Um,
It
but at the same time, part of what we're really listening for is how can we help people see the potential of the future rather than the equity of the past? Now, you want both, but if
is.
you can't look forward, you're always looking back, and the future is always ahead of you. And but it really does come down to the people, and how do you motivate the people, um, especially when there's no two cultures that are alike. You can be in the
Yeah.
same exact industry doing the same exact thing, peers in every respect, and yet the culture is always going to be different. And in the end, people buy people that make good products and services. So, how, from your perspective, if you brought that to life in the work you've been doing?
That people by people. versus the
Well,
product.
yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah. I mean, you need a personality, right? Like,
yeah,
you want to buy the personality. And the thing is that the cool thing about what we do, right, is that we sell technology that I would buy or you would buy, right? So like this is revenue technology. These are so the people we're selling to is the person who does show up in like the Buddy the Elf suit at Christmas, right? Like he's that guy. That's who we sell to, and that's who we are selling, right? So
yeah,
like you have to bring a little bit of personality to it, so people understand what they're buying, that it's not this like Frankenstein version of a person because you took these two
right,
and
right,
brought them together. And that's the part that I think is still the evolution that we're in right now. It's like
yeah,
who we are and being very clear about that in the market, that we're fun, but we're approachable, but we're serious. Like we've been
yeah.
here, we've seen these roads, we built this tech a long time ago with AI in mind from day one. So having a little bit of gravitas in this conversation, but being really approachable.
Yeah.
And I think that's a marriage of those two cultures too.
So tell us, just in case our listeners aren't overly familiar, exactly what is it you do? Or, what is the product? What is the service you offer? And then what are the superpowers that are inherent in that? What does it do? I mean, because there's, I'm sure, a wide range of things that are in the kind of benefits or solution set. But like,
Mhm.
what are some of the superpowers that really stand out in your mind?
Yeah, so what we do is that we take all of the entire platform of anybody who's in the revenue space, right? So it's your salespeople that are doing the outbound all the way up to your CRO or whoever is charged with revenue, right? And making it more predictable. And so you take all those signals from across your entire organization, from your phone call to your sixth sense to your you name it, any kind of technology. We take all that in and make it more predictable, and everybody can work through it across the entire process. So you create, you convert, you close, right? Um, but wait, that was the first part of the question. What was the second part of the question?
Superpowers.
Superpowers. Oh, well, I think the superpower, and this is really true, is that if you look at what Sales Loft offered as a standalone, sometimes a little bit Coke versus Pepsi with who's in the market, right?
Yep.
And if you looked at Clary had a little bit of Coke versus Pepsi, but a very different bespoke offering, right? And when you combine those two, and they both were trying to like, I'm going to move into your space and you're going to move into mine. Well, now when you take the best of the breed, honestly, the superpower is nobody really has best of breed.
Right.
And I would just say this, honestly, besides these two companies, which is what I found super compelling about
Right.
coming here. I'm like, I've bought this tech before. I know this tech, right? Like
Yeah.
I've bought it multiple times at multiple companies. I know these
Right.
companies well. So that's the exciting thing, is that it's no longer Coke versus Pepsi. Like I don't know what the analogy would be, but it's different. It's not something
Right.
that exists really in the market right now. So that's the fun and exciting part. That's the superpower.
Nice. I like it. I like it. So in the ecosystem, um, what's the current partner program and kind of ecosystem look like? And what do you see going forward? Because I can imagine lots of potential there, and in tech in particular, and sales enablement. Uh, there's there's a lot of stuff that people tend to try, especially as they scale, and
Hmm.
then they realize this is not what I need, and there's a lot of moving around because of that. And sometimes that's really hard because something's been there for long enough that the muscle memory is pretty deeply seated. So I'm just curious, how are you thinking about that side of the equation? Because the friendly partnerships that are co-opetition, is a big part of the industry, right?
So many, right? I mean,
Yeah,
everybody is raising their hand now. And there's so many, like I say to my team, there's so many frenemies in this space right now.
yeah,
It's a weird number of them, right? And so here's the way I look at it. If they have something to offer and and we're the connective tissue to that offering, come on board. Like I'm used to I worked at ServiceNow. Everybody was a frenemy, right? It's
yeah,
workflow. Like
yeah,
everybody is like could steal your business or you can steal theirs, right? And so it's kind of like that. And I think you just have to be open to it and say, hey, like if you're going to connect to us, we know that we're the backbone of where people actually do their work. And so if your data point actually helps our customers, please connect to us. Like we think that's great. We think that is a superpower. We do have I think I'm fairly certain we collect the most signals in this space. unless somebody's come out with some announcement I'm not aware of in the last 24 hours,
Right.
which we do. I think the next piece and the next phase of this where it gets even more exciting is the news we recently announced by MCP. People are doing your work, right? We're working in Claude, we're working in other places.
Yeah.
And so providing that where you can do your work there and pull from all of the great backbone that's already been built for so long that is such a solid platform, that's where it starts to get super exciting.
Yeah, I it's fascinating how, we use a ton of tech, ton of AI, and, the integration potential now is so incredible. It had a conversation yesterday, I won't name them, but um, uh, a major player in the CRM space, let's just say, and they have all these native AI tools, and I'm like, "Guys, because you connect out, I don't like what you're building is interesting, but it's a year behind."
Right.
And I said, "Get your expert on the phone because I really wanna pressure test this. I wanna use what's best and what's gonna provide the best value, and I want somebody that's gonna be really honest from a, like, understanding of what I'm asking perspective, not just a salesperson that is only an inch deep sometimes." And sure enough, he got on and he's like, "Yeah, you're right. What you're doing with Claude, with Cowork and other things is beyond where we are now.
Mhm.
But stay tuned. Here's the 3 areas to watch." And I was like, that's what if somebody would have said that
Right.
to me at the beginning, I would have wasted less cycles and been more positive toward that brand. And, so I'm curious, as you integrate MCPs, obviously giving
Mm.
people ways to do what they're doing and connect, how are build versus connect, you kinda have to do both, but,
We do.
how are you playing the game? What's your vision? Are there certain aspects that you feel like you can build better?
We do. We do think that. Yeah. And we candidly we do. So
Yeah,
in the roadmap speaks to that,
yeah,
where that's we're leaning heavy into that. That like it's the platform, it's the backbone. But do your work where you want to do your work. Like
yeah,
go be creative. Go you build too, right?
right,
Like you should build too. We accept that and we understand that's going to happen.
yeah,
I think if we didn't do that, we would, be defunct,
right,
right? We wouldn't be
right,
around long. Um, and I think that's the thing that's giving us a massive edge in the market. It is a
yeah.
massive edge right now, I think. We're seeing that
Well
not everybody's doing this.
and the beauty of connections plus native is you can see and learn and optimize the product to do what it's best at. And it actually probably refines your roadmap on a rolling basis, as you kind of see what user behavior looks like and what impact looks like. At least I can imagine that. I'm curious, tell us about your buying committee, because I imagine that, and especially when you get to larger enterprise, there's a commercial sponsor, and then there's users that may or may not have advocated for, or
Mhm.
haven't any decision in the or vote in the decision. How do you look at that and kind of parse the buying committee?
Right. So yeah. So when you, it's a great question because when you look at Sales Loft, very different buying committee, right, versus Clary.
Yeah.
Clary's committee started at the CRO and
Yep.
ended pretty much at the CRO,
Right.
right? It's their decision, right? And the buying committee experience for Sales Loft is there's a lot more people that have to be involved, because you're talking a lot more like rev ops and maybe first second line managers in sales who bring it forward and say, well, I want this makes my life better, I used it somewhere else, right? You know the story, right? So
Yep.
when you then you go to the CRO, and now this is a full, to sell the full suite,
Yep.
a very different buying committee, and then you add the complexity of the fact that Clary really, whether by design or not, really sold mostly into B2B tech. So the title of CRO lives there. It does not live everywhere else, right? And
Yeah.
so in manufacturing or right, so it's not even just the buying committee, it's the titles.
Yeah.
And that they all have the same responsibility, which is predictable revenue, right? Which is what we offer, right? But
Yep.
but it's that complexity of like I'm speaking now to the head of RevOps. We're speaking to the CRO, and with AI,
Yeah.
the CFO really wants in on this conversation, right? And so winning them over. So the buying committee, I think, with AI has expanded and made it a little bit more of a bigger conversation. And so the way I look at it is that it's a little bit more, um, you have to win more hearts and minds. Where I show up to a call, and if I work somewhere else, I know sales loft, I know all the cast of characters, I know the competitors, I know the space. CFO probably doesn't.
Yeah.
And so now
Yeah.
you have to educate them, which, right? We all, it's always the fear in sales and marketing that
Yes.
I have to
Yes.
educate you and sell you at the same time is
Yeah.
not an easy thing to do. And I think we've cracked it because we've really focused a lot on speaking to the CFO with ROI, with the real data story, our telemetry data. Like we're going really big on that.
Hmm.
And we've just come out with something just like I think it's this week it landed a whole blog on our telemetry data because that's where we're going to win over the hearts and minds of the CFO of saying like when they have this better win rates when they have this product here's where it lands like that's where I think it helps us with the bigger buying committee that we have now.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I'm curious how well, I'll actually, before I ask this second question, I'll ask a, how do you titrate the market? Like, do you literally just, is it all verticals and kind of all segments, or do you have a very specific way of kind of titrating the market and segmenting, and therefore, I mean, obviously, what you do is consistently around, predictive revenue and
Yeah.
supporting sales optimization in all forms. But do you split that by market or audience or segment, as you kind of go to market?
Yeah, we split it when we look at it from like the 1,000-foot view. We split
Yeah.
it by enterprise commercial, right? Different
Yep.
needs, different
Yep.
buying center, different purchase, right? Different purchase
Yep.
path, right? Enterprise obviously probably comes in through the CRO potentially, not always,
Yep.
but potentially, or they're in the buying circle much faster.
Yep.
So that's the first thing we do is we split it that way, right? The next thing we do is we do look at it very much by verticals.
Yep.
And it's more lightning strike though. Like it's like here it is for manufacturing. This is who you're going to speak to. Do not go in with a CRO conversation. It's probably not a CRO, it's a VP of sales, right? Here's what their problem is. This is how we solve it. Here's the customer stories. Here's the ROI. Here's the telemetry data. Here's all of that. Like that's going to win them over. But it's more lightning strike of,
Yeah.
going by those specific verticals.
I'm curious, um, does the solution in some respects help the companies maintain ownership, if you will, over the sales relationship? Because one of the dynamics a lot of industries face is that the salespeople own their book. It's so relationship driven that they hide in Salesforce or other places, and so the transparency is like this walled garden. And as long as the revenue's there, there's kind of this détente approach. Uh, I'm just curious, is that something that you solve for in some way?
I think we do, right? It's a lot easier to pick it up when the cadences are built and all of this like this
Yeah.
activity exists. So the knowledge transfer is a little bit more fluid. My opinion is they're always going to be a little cagey with their book, right? Like
Yeah.
back in the day, it was you picked up your Rolodex and hiked it
Right.
out of there, right?
Right. First
I
thing off
think
your desk. Yeah.
I'm dating myself, but I think that exists still a
Yeah.
little bit,
Sure.
right? Like,
Yeah.
which makes sense. But I think we do remove a lot of that problem, right?
Yeah.
Because it is the knowledge transfer is not as it's not as needed from person to person because it lives outside also of just being in your CRM.
Yeah. So as a marketing firm, one of the dilemmas that we face, which is not, we're not alone in this. I imagine you suffer from it in some level, in that it used to be, especially 20 years ago, you could actually talk about your case studies, and a lot of the more minute detail was confidential, but the top line performance you could kind of share and things like that. Today, every contract says you can't even tell anybody we work together, let alone anything else. How, because social proof is a big part of, brand and business success.
Yeah.
How do you build that, and what's that look like for your organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. It gets more and more complicated. I do think one of the advantages. So here's one kind of odd nuance to this industry, right? Is that The people that are most likely to speak publicly are people that are also in tech,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
They know, they live it. There are less restrictions on when they can speak publicly, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's one of the things that I think is a bit advantageous, especially when you go and ask somebody else in tech.
Yep.
They're more likely to do it, and they also look at it as a great career builder. It's a
Yeah.
lot more complicated outside of this industry.
Yeah.
And that is where it's tough. We try to write it into contracts. We try to keep it there. And we do a lot of, customer advocacy work, a lot of making that sticky glue with our customers that,
Mm.
for example, we're doing a World Cup, bracket thing with customers that's live right now.
Nice.
Yeah, these are fun. Like, this isn't, you know what I mean? Like, of course, we do tons of sports games, like lots of them. Like, we've
Yeah.
been really doing a ton of them, which I think is fun. But also things like that are fun too, where you're sitting in your house and you're like, oh, let me do the World Cup. Like, I don't know if I want to, like, I have the time or the effort or energy to go and
Yeah.
meet you at Yankee Stadium, but I can do this and still be part. But I think creating that connective glue with your customers and getting back to, as we said in the beginning, the human part, as we've
Yeah.
talked about before, the human element of this. Like,
Yeah.
we're all people, we're people selling to people,
Yep.
and creating those relationships outside of just you and your salesperson. Again, that also helps with the knowledge transfer.
Right.
If more people have been exposed to the customer and are part of that customer's journey, I think that helps everybody. It helps the company overall, and it helps the
Yeah.
customer be more successful.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it's funny, the sports thing, I could see how that's Moneyball, but isn't, but there's I mean, I think a lot of people think about sports through that lens of, like, what's the dynamic of that, especially now that you've got all kinds of betting options that you never had, that's
Yeah.
speculating in lots of different ways. But, sales in some ways, obviously, there's a component of it that's very much about a pattern of delivering value, but there's also a lot of it's just unpredictable. So how do you create the distinction between the what's predictable and what isn't? Because there's certain aspects that you can't see around the corner on.
With our customer base of
Yeah,
like, yeah, I mean, that's true. The one thing I will say though is that when we looked at like our telemetry data, the more you use SalesLoft, it's just a fact, the better you'll do. Now, I'm
yeah,
sure some of that is the people who use SalesLoft more are more active salespeople, are more engaged with their customers, and
right,
frankly care more about the outcome, right? And care more about the value they're bringing. So I think there's a little bit of that too, right? But the facts are the facts, and so encouraging them to connect more of the systems that we offer, right? Like, you're only as good as the data you have, right? So
right,
if you connect more data sources that you're using and you know what's available that you can connect, all of that I think really does help tell the bigger value story to the customer of like, hey, we've got our sales teams are engaged here and here's the outcome of all this data flowing to you. The outcome for them will be better. The
yeah,
conversation will be better, right? Like,
yeah,
you'll know more about them, right? Like,
right.
so for example, we connect with something called user gems. I don't know if you're familiar with it,
Mm,
but if you're in sales loft, you probably have user gems because we always encourage people to use it. But one of the things is that if you were a customer and you left and you went to work somewhere else, and maybe we didn't know right away, we'll know because user gems will tell us, like,
mm,
little things like that, like, oh, hey, I already have a relationship with you and I know you saw value in the past. Let me bring that value to you again, right? Like,
yeah,
let's have that conversation. So like, all of that, using all that data, flows downstream to the customer, in my opinion, in a huge way.
no, that's great. Um, the telemetry data, I can totally imagine. I hadn't seen that, but I can imagine that. Is there a component of that that you're actually working toward it being something that might actually be factored into the financial story that public companies or investment round raise companies, would actually I mean, when you're raising a round or whatever, or trying to do a deal, like, it's natural to pull that in, right? Because here's what
Mm,
our pipeline looks like, here's what our forecast looks like, and a
right.
pro forma. But for a public company to talk about that from a stock perspective, is there components that you're edging towards where there's a certain stability in it that you can actually hold up with confidence in that regard?
Most Clary customers that are public companies will tell you they use it to report to the street.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that they're confident enough. I think I think some of the things we have planned on the roadmap, I would give even more I think right now it's probably like 99.9, right? But like,
Yeah,
but I think it's crazy to me that more people don't use it when you know that it's used for public companies, right? So
yeah,
like that I feel like just the certainty, having worked in so many public companies myself, the
yeah.
certainty is like a weight off your shoulders. So yeah, that's
Well, there's
enormous.
also this dimension based on what you're describing that, it's not only, uh, a confidence level because anybody that's using it's seeing, value
Mhm.
that's quantifiable, but anybody that's looking from the outside knows that you're taking the time to be thoughtful. Like, the number of organizations that when you ask them how they do stuff, that when they can't answer that in a thoughtful way, you're just like, oh my gosh, ripe with opportunity. And investors see that through a different lens, right?
They
It's very
do.
different. Then you're the diner and the diner dinner, kind of dynamic. Yeah, so that's super fascinating, and as a marketer, I'm envious of the advantage you've got in being able to tell that story because it's born from humans, but proven through through the solution. I mean, and quantified. And not very many can say that. I mean, that's a distinct advantage.
It is, I agree, and their win is our win, and we can articulate that. So that's
Right.
I agree, that is a distinct advantage.
So looking to the next 6 to 12 months, are there any significant things that you can share? I know the answer I'm sure is yes, there's lots that you are doing.
There's
But is there anything that you, are ready to share that's either coming soon enough or, that's definitely already out there?
Yeah, I can tell you that the brand's gonna come together, right? We can't always wear 2 team jerseys, that's not healthy. I start checking the website, by, like, September 1st, lots will be happening. We have to reestablish the way we package our products to the market, right? That's
Yeah,
big. Our AI focus, the that's get ready for that to be like fast and furious over the next 6 months. Multiple things will be changing.
yeah,
We're not gonna take our time. We realize the market's moving fast, and we have to move faster. And the intention is to do that. Between now and January, you'll see tons and tons of announcements
mm.
that are definitely staking our claim.
Super fascinating. Again, I envy so much of what you have to work with there. I'm curious, so beyond the brief, the premise of the name is actually we write these things called briefs or plans, and a lot of times, insight comes from nowhere midstream that inspires us to even better work. Are there any examples where in your tenure to date with the organization that you've, thought you knew what you were working against and something came up that made it even stronger?
I would say when I first started, like the basic thing you do is when you look at these two organizations, how do they measure success? Right. So I started looking. That was my one of my first things. I was like, well, how is Sales Loft measuring success? How's Clary measuring it? Both were very different, right? Both were going to market very differently. One of the interesting things is that SalesLoft in particular measured success a lot by inbound. So it was like if you came to the website and you were hand raised and you want to do a demo, it was almost exclusively. And that as comes with its own myriad of issues because you're not going to hit as many enterprise people if you're really focused on that. You're going to hit people more commercial because they're more hand raisers. There's that in and of itself is something. But the part that gets more interesting is that the more I looked at the data, the more I was like, wait a second, this is going to change anyway because of AEO and GEO. And like, for a myriad of reasons, I cannot measure things that way.
Yep,
What I really need to do is figure out how I'm going to tell that story and win the hearts and minds of everybody about the big, broad vision that's out there, because that's going to help me show up in AEO and GEO.
yep.
So doubling down on the storytelling was something that, like, was not what I was expecting when I first started this process of, like, peeling back the layers of the onion.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense, and we encourage that of all the brands we work with, and being very choiceful about where, having a good monitoring system to keep an eye on it, but also, making sure there's like an obsessive authenticity and almost vulnerability in it, because the more you edge towards humanity, and human stories and experiences, the more it will actually get picked up, which is counterintuitive because you'd think the system would regulate around data oriented, kind of
Mhm.
binary insights. And yet, because its bias is to please us, it almost always looks for human traits or human characteristics. So,
It
um,
just thinks we're all full of ourselves. That's why they think it thinks
exactly. Sometimes it's right.
yeah, sometimes.
Yeah. Uh, well, Laurie, this has been fascinating. Yeah, I'm curious in your journey, are there any people you want to give a shout out to that have been particularly instrumental in being your advisors, mentors, or influences in your career path?
Oh, I mean, there's so many. I would feel like I'm missing somebody if I mention them along the way. I
Yeah,
will just say overall, really early in my career, I was super lucky to have people who talked about me in rooms I was not in, and that
nice.
is really that was my game changer. And it really it started. I mean, he's recently passed away, so I'll just mention one person, Frank Petrilli, who is the CEO of TD Waterhouse. And he made sure that I was in the room, and if I wasn't in the room, he said good things about me, and that really just catapulted my career. So there were many, but I would say it started there. And it's something I always think about, that I make sure to talk and speak highly of the people that are doing good work when they're not there.
Yeah,
Because it's not just mentorship, right? It's that sponsorship, I think, is just so important.
indeed. Yeah. Well, it's a team sport. And frankly, the best managers are successful because of others around them and the degree to which they're able to lift them up or support the organization as a whole.
Mhm.
It's amazing how few realize that sometimes. But humans are complicated beings, for sure.
True.
Um, yeah. So, any advice that you would give folks that are entering into the marketing realm today? Because it's a particularly odd and unusual time. It's funny. It's never been like easy.
No.
So I get a little fatigued with the "it's so hard today" story, because I think it's always been somewhat hard, because it's
Yeah.
so amorphous. Like, when people ask me what I do, my job is to help convince people to take a behavior,
Mhm.
and that's hard. I
It is hard.
mean, even selling ice cream, things that we that are widely liked, is hard, at scale. But any advice that you were given or that use as part of your belief system you share with your team and others, that you care to share?
Yeah, I always tell my team that no one's going to care about your career as much as you. Advocate, right? Like
Yeah,
that is something I think is really important. And it's not just like advocate. I want a new title. I want $5 more. That's not what I mean by advocate. Like advocate for trying something new. I want to take on that project. I want to be part of the project. I want to learn.
yeah,
Those things are rewarded, in my opinion, much faster than somebody gave you a new title. I
yeah,
never my I've had some pretty lofty titles. I have never once asked for a title change in my career. I think what's noticed, at least in my experience, is when you say, I'll take on the project, I'll do the hard thing, I'll help
yeah,
you get through it. Like that is noticed more than anything else in my
yeah.
humble opinion.
Well, and solving complex problems is incredibly rewarding if you're successful. And even if you're not, I mean, a lot of times it's rewarded in knowing how to in the future, or at least how to, leverage what you learned. Um, One of the questions that I ask every interviewee that I work with and have for years is, how much would you like to make? And if they can't talk about money representing themselves,
Mhm.
then how on earth could they do it with a client?
You're
Or
right.
and so, and I always encourage that because, having those conversations that are often awkward, are necessary, and you have to find your way to the comfort of it. And if you're delivering value, you should be worth a lot.
Right.
And there's
Exactly.
obviously a balance there. You don't want to be obnoxious about it, but, um, and, certainly I've run into those people too, but, I share that because I think it's relevant to what you said of advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
Because it is, and look for opportunity to deliver, which is, I think, great advice for sure. So Lori, in closing here, Couple questions quickly. Tell us a little known fact about you. I'm just curious what that might be.
I think most people, because I'm a tech executive, probably assume I do more techie things. I don't. I would rather be on my porch with a cup of coffee outside. My favorite vacation is going to a national park and hiking and just being outdoors. So I would rather leave my phone in my backpack and walk than
Nice.
anything else. So yeah.
Nice. And along those lines, you've had a really compelling career and multidimensional career up to now, and much more to come. Hollywood called, and they're going to do a biopic on you. What's the name of the film, plot, or theme, or who's going to play you?
I think most important would be who would play me, and if there was a modern day version of Betty White, I would be thrilled.
Very cool.
That
Very
would be
cool.
awesome.
Yeah, I like that.
And then I think a title for it, probably something like, "Well, that escalated quickly," or or "Hold my beer." I don't know, something like that would be appropriate.
That's awesome. For somebody that's worked a lot in M&A, that is in IPOs, that's fantastic. I love it. That lands really, really well. I could see where that comes from. That's brilliant. Well, Lori, this has been fascinating and super interesting. I hope that we get a chance to do it in a year or so again, to get an update on what the latest is when the brand has now won and you're scaling at even greater heights. Thank you so much for all you shared.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. This has been fun.
All right, with that, we'll wrap up another episode of Beyond the Brief. As always, there's always more Beyond the Brief, so stay tuned for more in the coming weeks.